And you are now.
I'll call the meeting of the Stormwater Committee to order Tuesday, April the 6th, 2021. We're in the upper level of Old Town Hall. I'll ask everyone to please rise for the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm just going to read this notice. In compliance with the governor's COVID-19 orders, this meeting is limited to 23 individuals being physically present, inclusive of committee members and staff. Masks and social distancing will be enforced. This is also a remote participation Zoom meeting. It is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast and internet posting on www.dayton-ma.gov and YouTube. Zoom meeting number 876-8820-5106. Zoom meeting password 301193. Call-in number 929-205-6099. I will ask that when you speak, since the computer here on the table is the mic that's picking up conversation, that you remove your mask and you speak, as I messed that up, and you speak clearly. I'm going to call Mrs. Grassi. Would you call the roll, please, for attendance?
Mr. Bellin?
Aye. Here.
Mr. Aguilar?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Mullen?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Ms.
Caledonia.
Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Burnett?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
I'm here.
Chairman Goulart?
Here, thank you. Excuse me. So at 2 o'clock, we have a scheduled hearing. This is a continuation of Clearway Energy with the proposed solar farms at 1420 and 1522 William Street. So,
Mrs. Chairman, I'd like
yes.
to thank the two people that are in the room with us, the MAI, I believe that's Meridian Associates, which are the surveyors, engineers of record for that project. So
for,
the original one for the 2 o'clock public hearing.
okay,
There's only two people in here with us, and both of them says MAI with it, so I'm assuming that's why they did.
okay. Mr. Ryan?
Yes,
Okay, so are you here for the Clearway Rujo Farm Solar Farm?
yes.
And Mr., I can't read the last name.
Chris Broyles, he's my associate at Meridian.
Okay, so you realize that we've got to wait till 2 o'clock for the hearing?
Yes, I saw the agenda and I just figured I'd jump on in case things went faster than normal and you wanted to start early, but if you want to stick to 2 p.m., then I'll come back on it too.
Okay, you're welcome to stay because this is an open public meeting. However, it is scheduled for 2 p.m. and I can't start it early.
Okay,
There may be other people that want to sit in just for that hearing.
sure.
So we're going to work through the agenda until we get to 2 o'clock and then we will be taking this up, okay? So again, you're welcome to stay or you can leave and come back, okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay. Number 5, new business. So 5A, meet Michael Mullen, our new town administrator. So Mr. Mullen, if you would like to say a few words to the Stormwater Committee, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mullen.
Sorry, I forget about this. So no, thankfully I've had the opportunity to meet and work with meeting Mr. Burnett this afternoon with everyone here. One of the things that I've learned in my, I think, 4 short weeks here is that the Stormwater Committee has been integral really in so much of the progress that the town's been making. And just by what the committee has been involved in, what its charge is, how, just represents a cross-section of that progress. So, you know, I mean, I think it's important for the town administrator to, you know, to be up to date. And to have the information really coming out of these meetings to help inform me. So what the issues are, where the status is in terms of a host of areas and issues. And so I thank you for welcoming me. I thank the town for welcoming me. It's really happy to be here. I look forward to working with you all. So, sorry, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Mullin, we'll keep you on the mailing list for our agendas and our minutes. And also, if we have site visits scheduled, we will let you know that. And if you are available and would like to come out and see what a site visit's like, because we will be having some more solar farms being proposed. And you'll get to wear your jeans and your heavy shoes and tramp through the woods or the muck or wherever we're tramping through at the time. Okay, but we'll keep you advised ahead of time so that if you can join us, you're certainly welcome.
Thank you. Then I can dress accordingly as well.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Ferry will make sure you're properly attired.
Give you the hunting vest that has a big bullseye.
Thanks for that.
The next agenda item is 5B, site visit to Reed Brothers on March 22nd. This is Mr. Frenette, Mrs. Caledonia, and I. So I'm going to start with Mrs. Caledonia. If you want to give the committee an update on what we were doing.
Enforcement warrant was after 2 years for the Reed Brothers at this site, 1050 William Street. It's a lot that contains the Segregated River on the east side of William. So I guess in the past, I wasn't around at the time, but Stephen Reed had proposed a house in the back field, and when he figured out he wasn't going to get his 20-foot wide driveway and it was going to cost too much money, he built his house on Horton Street instead. But in the meantime, there's been disturbance along that access road and up along the field edge, which is in the UW and the riverfront area, which is also in an outstanding resource watershed to surface water supply. So I contacted, knowing that, you know, he hadn't responded to the commission's requests to come before the commission and discuss it and make good. I followed up with another letter and then said I was going to get DEP involved. Ended up getting DEP involved. DEP decided to come out to the site and I invited the relevant parties. What came of that was Steve Reed seemed to be apologetic, understanding that he did fill along the access road. Unfortunately, it's a fair bit of fill and clearing, and you know, it wasn't done for the agricultural purposes because that site hasn't been farmed, from what I understand, for over 6 years, so he doesn't meet that exemption. And even so, the alterations that are there would require a notice of intent and a water quality certificate. So, not to mention, apparently he's been allowing people to dump material up on the edge of the field, which has resulted in a potential solid waste issue. I did receive a DEP put me in touch with the solid waste division, and so I need to follow up with Stephen. But after the meeting, Stephen sent me an email saying that he'd been in contact with his surveyor, so we're moving in the right direction with that. I did read it though, in worst case scenario in stormwater bylaw, we would have the authority if he didn't want to comply to fix what's out there and send him a bill, but hopefully he would just do it on his own. Of course, with a permit from the commission. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay, Mr. Frenette, did you wish to comment on that site visit?
It was a mess. And we'll have a lot more information on it after the meeting. The Conservation Commission is going to meet on the 15th, at which time, hopefully, a representative for the Reed brothers will be at our meeting, and we'll figure out what we're going to do and how and when.
Okay, I went to the meeting as somebody from the Stormwater Committee because after I had heard about what had been going on, I was curious to see if in fact there were stormwater violations and whether or not this committee needs to get involved. I saw all the areas that were Mrs. Caledonia mentioned. I mean, literally, the road is narrow and the river in a few spots, it's not even a foot away from the edge of the, it's like a farm road. And then when we got down to the field, all along sort of the western edge, which unfortunately abuts the river, there is debris, construction debris, asphalt, carpeting, wood, you name it, it's there. I did get pictures of all of that debris. So the gentleman from DEP, Andrew Hoyant, pretty much said he hopes this gets resolved locally. He did clearly state that if it doesn't get resolved, DEP will issue fines, and those fines are like, I think, $35,000 a day. It's something phenomenal. He outlined all the things that need to be done. One of the things that was supposed to be done was, the first thing was to put a chain or something across the entrance, because Mr. Reed said he didn't know who did all the dumping and they were going down there without his knowledge, but there had been no attempt to prevent anybody. So Mr. Logan was there, who works for him, Greg Logan. And when they talked about putting a chain or something, I said, I think you have to have some kind of a lock so that the fire department can get down there. So Mr. Logan was supposed to contact you about that, Jim.
He did.
Okay.
We discussed the appropriate way to put a chain, and as far as I know, he's done that.
Okay.
I also told him he needed to put high visibility tape or something on it, so nobody hurt themselves if they didn't see it, so.
Okay. So I don't know if there's been anything done. I mean, he said he was going to have dumpsters there from NER the next day, so I don't know if that's happened. I would think those big trucks are going to have problems on that farm road where the river is close. So, but anyhow, I do have pictures, and we know what was there the day of the site visit. We'll know whether or not anything's been removed, but there's a lot of debris that's going to have to be removed. And you could tell by looking at it, it hasn't been there a long time. I mean, there's old dumping and there's new dumping. So at this point in time, I don't think the Stormwater Committee has to do anything except monitor what happens with the Concom. But when they start removing all that debris, there will be disturbance, maybe not to the degree that we would normally get involved, but this was just to bring to your attention that there was a site visit, and at this point, DEP and the Conservation Commission are working through this problem, and hopefully it gets resolved. So
I've never been down there. How much debris is down there?
I'll send out the pictures. A lot of stuff. Oh, it's not one truckload. And not only that, it's spread out along the sort of the western edge of the river. As a matter, you enter the field on this little road, and it's a big wide field, and you can see where there have been test holes dug for foundations. You know how you do those holes to find a place to put septic? Perk tests. And they weren't all, there was one that was relatively new that hadn't really been filled in.
Jim, you could fill this room to the ceiling 3 times.
Really?
Really?
Well, that doesn't happen overnight. That's been
No.
going on for a long time.
No, that's what I said about there's old debris, there's new debris. The field itself, other than those perk tests, it's just kind of weedy grass. On the far end, there's an old stand. It looks like it's ready to fall
A
down.
hunting gift.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, you could see through the woods, and you can see some of the buildings on the river on Brick Street. the area where the bridge washed out, you know, that they did restoration, but you can see it through the trees. You can see that stuff out. It's a long ways in. But anyhow, so we'll just, I think we will keep this on the agenda just as a monthly, is there anything new? And Lisa, if you would be prepared to give us any updates so that if this board has to do anything, we'll know. And if everything is progressing with Concom and DEP and the property owners, then it'll just be an update.
Yeah. I know Bill said maybe by the 15th, but realistically, the surveyors just got contacted, so it might not be by the 15th. But I'm definitely gonna have them come to the meeting and discuss the, you know, any steps they've taken to comply in the meantime. And I don't want them to remove the fill from the back until we've figured out the road. I mean, that might end up causing more problems if the road's not very stable, you know?
Well, not with those culverts. There was an area that looked like, was it one or two culverts that go under that farm road where the river is close? Is it one? But the other thing too is, I would think those trucks going in and coming out are going to be bringing out soil. So they're probably going to have to do something along William Street to keep the stuff out of the road.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think there's gonna be before they can get all that stuff out of there, that road is a problem. Because that's what I was thinking. When he said he would have NER come in, and I'm thinking, those are heavy trucks, and they're gonna be heavier going out.
Nancy,
Yes,
they didn't have any trouble putting it in there.
no, that's true.
They won't have any trouble taking it out.
Well, what I was,
Especially if DEP gets involved.
Mhm, mhm. It's gonna be-
It'll come out quick.
It's gonna be expensive no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately.
I just have one question.
Yes.
Madam Chair. Did DEP give them a timeline yet for removal?
No, they wanted it,
You haven't yet? Okay.
they wanted the Conservation Commission to handle.
I think the timeline is in effect going to be set by the property owners. If they cooperate, there will be sufficient time.
Right.
If they don't cooperate, time is going to run out quickly. So,
Yeah, we got their attention kind of quick when we threatened to fine them $300 a day for a violation. And then, of course, when we got DEP involved, that helped. So.
are there any other questions on agenda item 5B? If not, we'll move to agenda item 6A, old business, update 170 Beach Street.
So I believe, I haven't seen it, but on tomorrow night's Board of Selectmen's agenda is discussion and hopefully approval for the installation of a sump basin on Pleasant Street that will be installed by the Highway Department. The intent of that basin is to allow the wetland that's located behind 170 Beach Street to only reach a certain level and then spill off into the sump and then go out into the marshland and eventually make its way to the river. By doing so, we're going to eliminate the problem at 170 Beach, which the fire chief and I both are in agreement that we're not going to allow occupancy of that building until this is rectified. The way that that building is inundated with water when it rains is causing a hazard for the occupants and then also safety personnel if they needed to respond there in an emergency. So not to mention that the Board of Health is in receipt of an application for a septic repair, but they cannot do a perk test until the yard is dried out. So this is the only way that we can get this neighborhood back to where it belongs. We know that there was a wetland there. No one's proposing to drain it off, but we do need to maintain the wetland to a certain elevation and not allow it to encompass the whole neighborhood, which is what it's doing now.
I was down there about a week or so after our site visit, and the water had substantially gone down. It was probably some lawn, but it was still very wet. I haven't been down there since, but there wasn't, he could access his house without stepping in water.
Mr. Ferry, you took Mr. Mullen down there on a field trip, so you want to tell us what you saw? Was there water in the yard again?
Yeah, the tide was up again. So, yeah, we can help out. So I just want to know what side of the Beach Street we're going to construct it from the north side, and you're thinking one of them is going to continue with ditch down to that base.
So there's already a swaleway on the north side of Beach Street. So the intent is, once your structure is installed, they'll enhance that swaleway, install the riprap, the siltation control, et cetera, and have that water spill into your drainage, the town drainage, so it doesn't go into Beach Street.
I have a question for Lisa, since she's here, maybe.
Mr. Ferry,
Thank you.
thank you.
So the work I need to do down there, it's close to wetlands across the street from Pleasant Street. Is that relevant? From
It's in the
street?
roadway,
Or is
right?
it- or is the roadway area?
It's in the roadway. Yeah, you can-
Okay,
But you
now,
should put the erosion.
but
control.
the wetlands that he identified, the wetlands he identified will be, I think, 90 feet from.
Yeah. But my question is this, I thought the last meeting we talked about the topo survey we were looking for. Did that ever happen?
It did,
Oh,
it did. It's in conjunction with the septic repair. Yes.
so we know it is gonna go that way?
We know, and we know it's not gonna drain off the wetland. It's only gonna mediate the situation that we were all subject to the last site visit. So, and we can work with Tom to make sure that the elevations all work so that we don't have a drain off. But
Yeah.
obviously, what's happening out there now is affecting the homes that were there before. Oh, I'm sorry. The homes that were there before the water. So, sorry.
You have to get that fixed.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
They have to.
In the short time that I've been in this town, which is 10, 11, 12 years, I've never seen the water that bad at that location. So it's definitely getting worse as time goes on. And now it's affecting the quality of life of homeowners, which is not, we can't allow that to happen. So thank you, everyone who's involved. Thank the chairman of the board of selectmen for putting on the agenda on short notice, and everyone else who will be involved in the discussion.
Whatever you need to fix that, fix that.
Thank you.
Have to.
Yeah, and the situation we're dealing with still is the fact that we have not found conclusive evidence that those roads in the park belong to the town and were accepted by the town. Even if the town somewhere in its past history voted to accept those roads, if it didn't get recorded, it doesn't exist. So I don't know what happened when the park burned down and the man turned it into housing or cottage property or whatever. But Tommy and I were talking about that. And when the Berkeley Dighton Bridge project was proposed, and I was working on easements, out of the blue, the state came and said, you've got to accept Center Street, and Berkeley has to accept Elm Street. And I thought he was nuts. Those roads have been around forever. They were never recorded. So each town had to vote to accept their respective streets as currently laid out. And we had to have a plan drawn. Fortunately, I had the plan because it was all part of the easements that we had already done. But that was a surprise that a road like for probably hundreds of years had been the main drag down when there was a ferry there to cross. But anyhow, so we're doing what we can within our unwritten minimum maintenance rules to help the people or the owner down there at Beach Street without crossing the line relative what the town can actually do because we don't own the roads. So anyhow. Anything else on 170 Beach Street? Any questions or comments?
I didn't understand how you're gonna alleviate the problem, how you're gonna drain that.
I'm not draining.
Because you had your mask on.
I'm not draining it. I'm gonna provide a basin on the side of the road where the hydrant is,
Well, on what road?
Pleasant.
on Pleasant Street.
On Pleasant Street.
And we run that pipe, my existing basin to the south of that road on Pleasant Street. So my work is gonna be within the town layout.
Okay.
They will be to encourage the water to get to my structure.
Okay.
So it's not, the whole burden is not on us. And that, the water from there already crosses Pleasant Street and goes through the natural filter across the street.
So the neighbors
Thank you,
gotta
Tom.
work it out on Beach Street.
I didn't talk to any neighbors, but
I mediated the discussion between the neighbors on Beach Street, yes, they are, they're gonna do it. Because as Nancy, as Selectman Goulart said, that's private property, we don't have any authorization to be there. So this is a symbiotic example of the town and the town's people working together to alleviate a problem.
it's kind of like build it, it will come, so.
Well, you hope.
The hell with the ducks.
The ducks are still gonna have water, don't worry about it.
We can play somewhere else.
Plenty of water there.
Any other questions or discussion on 170 Beach Street? All right, so we move on to 6B, update on 0 Brook Street. This is the Brook Street Solar Project, the license agreement. So the agreement was prepared and approved. What we're waiting on is some documentation from the developer and also verification that the order of conditions was recorded, which they said was done. So I know that Todd has been working with on the email that I forwarded, that some of the stuff was in there. Mr. Ferry, did they apply for the driveway or the culvert permit, whatever?
So I believe that's through his office during the application of the building permit, that's when the driveway permit comes out.
Okay,
It's not a culvert permit, it'll be the actual driveway permit.
Right.
Which involves, I would be recommending the culvert, which is already a plan to refer to.
okay, so,
So they've contacted me about when the permit can be released. I told them that there was still some outstanding items for the licensing agreement. There's been a discussion about the planning board not having the correct plan, which we're trying to sort through now. And they've also changed contractors, which I CC'd you on an email.
yeah, I saw that.
So, you know, despite the fact that they want to move forward with this, they need to get all their background in order, and they haven't done that yet. So I'm working as best I can to try to help the permit along. I did get some sign-offs next door that are needed. But to answer your question directly, there's still 3 or 4 signatures away from me getting close to you and I releasing permits, so.
Yeah, mine should be a finale once it reaches your level.
I did check with Charlie Mellon to see if he had any of that information. He doesn't, so that if the conditions were recorded, we simply just need a copy of that recording information, and then the SWIP, of course, needs to come, and usually that comes after.
Yeah, the SWIP is in our stormwater conditions, so that'll come after. What triggering mechanism you have is this project is going to go to you for a sign off. It's in selectmen right now. Once it goes to you, if you still haven't received that document, the contact information is on there. Just call them and say, you'll get my signature when I get the document. That's it. All right. And then we can move it
And
on
then
to the
the
next
site
thing.
visits happen.
Right.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes,
Tim Ryan, I want to just piggyback on what the building commission said, is that our office manager, Mrs. Easterday, is reaching out to the applicant to make sure that we have the updated set of plans that we're supposed to provide us also. So,
Thank
you.
Excuse me, I think we got the order of conditions, the recorded order of conditions this afternoon before we came in. But it looks like this was recorded in 2019.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for. This came today and,
They're entitled to turn in a copy to conservation. So you don't have to do it for them. They need to send it to us.
oh, okay, all right, I wasn't sure. And this is, it's a plan and it has the SWIP, but Todd looked at it quick and he said this is part of what we need. not the whole.
I
That's
think,
usually a binder.
Yeah, that's.
yeah,
actually-
the plan itself is 150 some pages, I think.
Well, that's what I was expecting to find, like an inch binder somewhere. We don't have anything like that.
No, all I saw was what they attached to that email that I sent to Todd today. I had sent 3 comments, because Ahmed had said that he was concerned that we're running out of time, and I'm thinking, no, winter's not coming. It's gone. We aren't running out of time. Anyhow, I said to him, 3 conditions. Concom order of conditions has not been recorded. Once recorded, notify the Concom of such action. They attached it. That's what she's referring to, but they still haven't sent it to you. And it was recorded in 2019. The culvert permit, which is the driveway permit, has not been applied for. And the response was, this is new to us and we've only seen it when we received this SWP yesterday. It will be applied for by the contractor. And as we just heard, that's part of the process that they will be dealing with, Mr. Aguirre. And then the stormwater PPP, pollution prevention plan, is anyone working on this? And he says it has been completed since December of 2020. My question on that one is, and maybe this is one Todd will have to answer. If it was completed in 2020, does that take into consideration any changes that were made in the plan, the latest plan, which is what the license agreement is based on? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Not speaking for Todd, but understanding how he thinks. I think the comment was changed so slightly, but I don't think it would affect the final.
It was just made wider.
Right, it was just made
Oh,
wider.
here he comes. Mr. Pilling. Just a question, the SWIP for Brook Street, they said, Ahmed said it had been completed, has been completed since December of 2020. Would any of the latest changes on the plan have affected this? Okay.
No, they shouldn't have affected it. Because this is just how they're gonna control stormwater during construction. They were always going across this ditch. It's just the angle that they're going across, so it shouldn't have any bearing on the SWIP.
Okay, the one thing that, when the plans came in, that Mr. Ferry and I looked at, it looks like the guardrail fence that I was talking about is a very short section of fence. And I said, we may have to talk to them because I'm looking for something that when you come down, you go south on Pine and make that very sharp left. I don't want the guardrail to stop over here because I'm looking at where you're going to end up if you don't make that sharp left. So in the agreement, the license agreement, it indicates they will install the guardrail. It doesn't say how long it will be or anything else, but what I said to Mr. Ferry was, well, we'll have to talk about where we want that and the length of that guardrail, because I think just I don't know, an 8 or 10 foot section near the culvert is not going to be sufficient.
I also think it needs to be tangential to the curb, so it's like perpendicular to the car as opposed to right now, it kind of comes towards the pavement, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right idea either.
Well, everything in the agreement said that it would have to be under the direction of Mr. Ferry and with his approval, so I figure we had latitude there.
Yeah, I also think that we should extend at least to where the pole is, the electrical connection pole. Because if not, it would create a situation where a car could go head on into that pole, not making that curve.
Mhm.
So I agree with Mr. Pilling, and I think between the two of us, we'll confer with Superintendent Ferry, and we'll come up with a good plan. Right, Tom?
Yes.
In the final draft of the agreement, there were not major changes made. We had to clarify a couple of things because of the language that talked about liability. Because basically all of the liability, if anything that happens on that property, including the town property for which they have this license agreement, is totally the responsibility of the developer, the contractor, whoever is down there. And I do mean any liability. One of the concerns they raised was, we mentioned the potential that the Board of Selectmen could revoke the license with a 30-day notice, unless there was an emergency, in which case we could revoke that license with less than 30 days notice. And the concern was like, on what grounds would you revoke it? And so I told Attorney Costa to consider all of these issues. So he put this clause in: potential grounds for revocation of the license included, but are not limited to: 1, violation of this license agreement; 2, violation of the stormwater permit granted for the work or the project; 3, violation of the order of conditions referenced in paragraph 4E hereof; 4, violation of planning board special permit and site plan review decision dated January 16th, 2019, or minor site plan approval dated January 21st, 2019. Violation of any EPA or DEP regulation applicable to the project or the work; violation of any town bylaw, regulation, or state or federal statute applicable to the project or the work; and 7, in such other good cause as determined by the Board of Selectmen. So they accepted that. So I think we've really kind of covered all the issues there. So I think the email that I forwarded to Todd today, waiting for that copy of the order of conditions as it was recorded to be returned to the Concom, and then what the building commissioner is working on should take care of this. But the big hurdle we had was the license agreement, because we've never done that before. I think the rest of it will fall into place as we work through it. So is there any other discussion on the Brook Street solar project?
Yeah, there's only one other little thing, is when we were trying to type up the application, we always note the date of the plan, the plan date. And we've been working from plans that have been in 2018 that were done by Atlantic. But then when they changed the driveway, it was plans submitted by Level, which is Nick Fassendale, who we've been dealing with. And they went through the planning board with some kind of little modified sketch plan or whatever. What they've now done is given us a brand new set of plans by Level that's like 6 pages long, and it's called for construction use. So it's a different set of plans than everything we've looked at so far. So I told Nick he needs to get a letter to the conservation, the planning board, and stormwater, basically saying, here's the new plan of record that I want you to use. It's the same plan as it was before, except we changed the driveway. So that everybody has one, contractor only needs one plan on site, not 2 or 3 or 4 different plans. We want it to be simple. So, but that's the only other minor little blip, but otherwise we're ready to go and have a pre-construction meeting and all the rest of it from a stormwater perspective.
Okay, so the next time this group gets together, let's say, relative to Brook Street, will probably be that pre-construction meeting. I think part of the problem also is, as has been mentioned by several people, it starts out with one company, and then it changes, and then the contract that they have isn't going to do it, and it's like you need almost a family tree to figure out where it's going and where you are at the given time.
So I appreciate your optimism, but the fact that they don't have a contractor and it's submitted to me, this is far from being over, okay?
Oh, no, no, when I say the next time we talk about it, I mean, we may have an interim next month and the month after. This will continue on the agenda for updates, but I don't think we'll be out there in the, immediate future, but we know what we have to do next, but.
I think this permit will be issued probably in the next 30 to 45 days, but before that, I just don't see, unless they so miraculously put all those pieces together, but,
I think the other thing that's added to the confusion is the number of players we've had to deal with. And it's clear to me that Ahmed Hafez, who is the man I've been dealing with up in Mississauga, Canada, who's trying to get the paperwork done with people down here in the States like Nick and others, all of a sudden there's all these players. And again, who are these people and what do they do? And who's supposed to do this? And somebody didn't do that and nobody told Nick. And so it's been kind of a mishmash. But anyhow, anything else on Brook Street Solar? And we'll keep it on the agenda, as I said. Okay, so here's another long-lasting one. So we'll have an update on Borrego Solar Project. Now, this is the one we have a phase 1, and we have a phase 2.
Yeah. No, I don't think phase 2 is the same people as phase 1. I don't think it was Borrego who did.
ISM, is it?
What was that, Lisa?
Oh, please take your mask off.
ISM,
Okay, it's ISM.
that's a new company.
Okay. That's the new company that's doing phase 2?
I believe so, right, guys?
Yeah, so phase 2 is this close. So may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So I have the stormwater bond finally in my hand. They set that. I sent a copy over to the treasurer this morning. It's in the appropriate amount, $7,500. And it's for the yearly maintenance of roadway, infiltration basins, filtration basins, retention basins, culvert fencing at said property, which is 2734 Elm Street, and this is for phase 2. Now, we are, however, still missing the as-built plans for this project. I checked with the planning board, they do not have
Phase 2.
phase 2, right? So my suggestion to the committee is that I really want to close this out. We're only missing the as-built plans to close this out. I would like to send a certified letter to them so that we can request these as-built plans and give them a stop-dead deadline so that we can finally close this thing out. Unless there's something I'm missing. I know we talked about the silt in the basins and whatnot, so I don't know if you want to bring that up.
Yes, so when we went out there, whatever it was, a few weeks ago, there's 2 drainage basins that were full of water.
This is the one out back. Phase 2. Okay.
Yep, they're filled with water. So I think they're filled with water because they've all silted up, because there's no grass growing anywhere. So it's silt that's running into them. And so I think we're gonna have to clean out that silt before they put down the lumen seed and get grass growing if we want it to work appropriately. The problem is because it's still all raw site up top, you can't grow the grass at the bottom because it's all gonna wash in again. So I think there needs to be something to clean out the silt of these basins before they go live. So, and that might be a different kind, not a bond, but some kind of surety that they're gonna put in to clean those up.
So this is Greg Lucini, right?
Right?
No, he's not involved
Okay,
anymore.
he was originally involved.
Yes.
So they're filed with conservation in May 31st, 2017. They got their orders August 22nd, 2017. I don't have any recording information for that. And then on top of that, they should have expired August 22nd, 2020, but because of COVID, they don't expire until August 22nd, 2021. So they're coming up to needing to ask.
There's a reason to force them to be done with this and get us an out bill.
They are done. So can we just compile all this in one letter and get it out to them certified? Us meaning, yeah, the letter's gonna come from me. So if you can get me this information, I'll put it on my letterhead, get it to them,
Okay.
and then put it in for this, all right?
So the $7,500 bond for maintenance of basins and all that good stuff, can there be a condition in the letter that says this bond will start once you clean out the mess and get the silt out of these basins now? Because there's silt in them. Then you've got to seed them and you got to get the basins to the point that they can be seeded and grassed. The bond will kick in then. The expenses prior to that, you've got to take care of this because these are not functioning properly. So if there's a way to do it, make them clean up the mess before we actually say to them, now, if you don't maintain, the bond will kick in.
Well, I think the legs I have with that is the project is not closed out. So therefore, whatever's there existing is still your responsibility. It's your responsibility after as well. But you're right, we have the bond that can kick in if they do not But as far as I'm concerned, the project isn't closed out, it's still an active project. So I would agree. So yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, so, for the benefit of Mr. Mullen, up on Richmond Hill, up on, off of Elm Street, this Borrego was the company that built this thing, but there is one entrance, and there's phase one, and then behind it, there's a second big solar farm, that's phase two. The company that built phase two met with us and agreed to fix some of the conditions that needed to be fixed on phase one, even though they didn't build it, because there were problems with the road, and to get to two, you gotta fix one, and so anyhow, they have done that. So the rest of the story is phase one. I'm dealing with Travis Stewart, who is the person who is negotiating the pilot agreement with the town. They also filed with the appellate tax board. So based on an email I got from Carol Beauregard today, we're this close to a pilot agreement. The first 2 years, we will negotiate what the payments will be for those two. The pilot agreement, in effect, will kick in for the next 15 years, and we've already got tentative numbers, which will have to go to the Board of Selectmen for review. We have a payment schedule. After the selectmen review it, and assuming that they agree to it, the next step is that pilot agreement will be on the annual town meeting for approval. And if the voters approve it, then it goes back to the Board of Selectmen for signature, and then it gets recorded. So that pilot agreement is one of the ones that got tabled back in 2015 or 16. And that was one of the pilot agreements that Mr. Lucini was trying to, he got signed by the Board of Selectmen, but they were never approved. So this one is not the one that went to court. The one that went to court that the town prevailed is now, has been appealed. I think it's to the Supreme Judicial Court. I don't know when that's going to come up. And I don't really know why they are appealing that one. That one's located on William Street. It's down behind the pig farm. And quite frankly, we could resolve this one too if they would remove all references to real estate, which they refuse to do. So they'd rather fight than switch. But in any case, so phase one will be, I think, on the annual town meeting for approval. And I anticipate that Mr. Stewart or somebody in his capacity on phase two is going to be looking for a pilot agreement on that one. So, but I don't see that one coming in time for the annual town meeting. It might be a fall town meeting. So anyhow, that's what's happening with phase one on Elm Street. And Mike, as soon as I get the numbers from Carol, because she sent the email today and I have a chance to look at them, we'll talk to you about that, and so you can see what the plan is for the 2 years have already gone by. Those payments will be made to the town. So I realize pilot agreements really aren't stormwater, but I'm just bringing the whole picture so that you know everything that's happening with these solar farms. So anything else on, I do have one question. What about that third piece of land? Does anybody know what's going to happen with that? Up on, it's to the north of the,
Off of phase two.
of phase two. There's some land there that they were talking about putting in the storage batteries.
Storage batteries. I've got to get an awful lot more information on storage battery storage before I even want to talk about that, because batteries make me nervous. They burn holes in my clothes and stuff like that. And I don't want them burning holes in the wetlands.
Well, I think also they were talking about bringing the entrance in from Hart Street. Was it part of it? So nothing's happening there. That's kind of.
Actually, we've heard nothing. That's come, did make a presentation to us, and they've never come back to us since. So
That's a good thing,
We,
I think.
we made them aware that the fire chief and I would be looking for fire alarm in each one of those self-contained battery boxes, which there are many, many of them. And then we asked for a couple of different 2 access points. We wouldn't allow just 1 access point. So I think they're probably rethinking as to whether or not they want to put those in Dayton.
Well, I think also they had said that it was going to be the add-on to phase 2, and they were told, no, that'll be phase 3, and that'll be separate permitting for everything.
Right.
So, okay. Anything else on any of the phases of Elm Street? If not,
Madam Chair, just
Yes,
quickly,
go ahead.
I believe that in conversations that we had with the contractor, we mentioned the cost of it is, the building commission mentioned fire suppression and that type of thing, that it's just, they never came back with.
okay. We'll keep this on the agenda too. Eventually this will drop off, but, well, maybe it won't because we'll be dealing with phase 2 until it's resolved, so. All right, we'll move on to 6D, update on Bristol County Agricultural High School. So before you give a report, Mr. Mullin, would you like to give a report on what you saw?
It's an
Wow,
amazing school, as we know, the addition, the upgrade, actually being there, just really phenomenal. They spoke very, very, very highly. Jim of you and begrudgingly Mr. Ferry.
and Mr. Pilling.
Yeah, Mr. Ferry as well for your work, from COVID. But yeah, just a phenomenal campus that we have here in our backyard, literally. And just really exciting stuff going on there. So, thank you.
Yeah, we're making sure Mr. Mullin gets his feet wet in a lot of areas.
Good. Well, that's a good one.
Okay, so you want to give us an update?
Sure, so progress, we have 2 major hurdles that have been met. The demo is almost done at Gilbert Hall, which means construction will start fairly shortly. I actually have a walkthrough at the school probably on Thursday to take a look at the demo and see the progress. And the small animals barn came down the end of last week, beginning of this week. So that's no longer there. It's just making way, as we know, for the new milk and dairy barn, which if you think what you can is impressive, wait till you see the milk barn. It's a state-of-the-art robotic facility, fully automated. It's just, we are so lucky to have that facility in our zip code. So things are moving along pretty well. Todd and I have been out there on a couple of occasions. They seem to be keeping up with the silt control in the roadway. I know we had a couple of rainstorms that drove some silt into the road, but they seem to be maintaining that. I haven't seen that problem creep back up. So if anybody does, just let one of us know. Yeah, well,
I made a tour around it this morning.
okay.
Had a little extra time and everything, you know, all the silt control seems to be working properly.
They do seem to be doing pretty well.
Well, it helps when I send them emails and say, hey, your silt sacks are full in the catch basins, replace them. And your silt fence is falling over, replace it. You do it within days, if not hours.
Good.
You don't have someone designated to do what you're doing?
They do. But there's always something else going on, so.
And besides that, if something doesn't happen within a very short period of time, you just send an email to the superintendent director. It gets done.
Yeah, I just say this, I've worked for Bill Bailey in the past in the union, and anything you ask of them, they will get done. They don't fall on.
And another thing about the Aggie school is my grandson made application to it and it's been accepted.
Oh, excellent.
You really gotta do something to get accepted over there now.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, that's where they put the kids that had trouble with. You know, they couldn't afford 5, they couldn't get 5 people to play in the basketball game over there when I was in high school. We used to play right here in this room.
Basketball?
So you're the one that ruined the floors like this?
What's
You're the
that?
one that ruined the floors? I had to
No,
fix
no,
them?
not me. No, I always want sneakers.
Mr. Barrett, do you have anything to add from the sewer commission? Aggie?
Please do.
So they're still trying to figure out the expense, the old gold tank. They can't make the 1,500 gallon tank work for 1,500 gallons. By that one time for your moms. So they gotta go back to the drawing board on that.
That whole proposal is ridiculous. That's the problem. That's why they can't make it work.
If you put a new wet well in, that's.
How many
they don't
years
do
does
it.
it take to figure this out? Well, they're not getting more occupancy permits until it's fixed, so you gotta take it seriously.
That's where we are.
Okay, anything else on Aggie? Okay, it's 2:00. So we are going to open the public hearing for Clearway Energy, 1420 and 1522 William Street.
Madam Chair, I will be recusing myself. I do have a relative of butter to the
Okay,
property.
okay,
That's Tom Myers refusing.
yes. You got that, Ross?
Thank you.
Yes, yes. No, yes, he does. He has a relative that owns property that abuts it.
Yeah, that's excusing.
Okay, so who wants to start? Where are we with the Arujo Farms? I'll call it Arujo Farms, solar farms. First thing I will mention is that what we found out is there are 2 property owners involved. That means there's going to be 2 of everything. 2 stormwater permits, 2 building permits, 2 everything else. So, and obviously we do that because if there is a problem with compliance on one piece of property, you can't hold both property owners responsible. So each individual property owner will be held responsible and liable if there are violations on their property. So,
Can you tell me who the other property owner is?
okay, there is a realty trust involved that I believe is the Arujo family. I know that I'm trying to think of the lady's name. Darlene and Ken, that's one of the owners.
Who is it?
Darlene and Ken.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And then the other one lives across the street. Rita and, yes. Yes. Yep. That's, I'm drawing the same blank, right? Yes. But, Mr. Pilling, you want to start on this one?
We got an email from TRC and they sent some revised calculations. They basically, looks like they've done everything that we asked with adding in additional basins and making the basins shallower and stuff. However, the document for the drainage is 145 pages long and the plan set's like 11 pages and it only came in like late Thursday afternoon. So obviously I haven't gone through it, but they understood that when they sent it. And they said their intent at today's meeting is to provide a brief update and schedule another hearing that gives myself and the Stormwater Committee sufficient time to review and comment on the revised documents. So just for the record, we have not received any hard copies of anything as of yet. But again, doing a cursory look through it, they did add in additional drainage basins and the calculations, and it appears that they've given us the information I requested. I haven't had a chance to look at the information to see if it seems to work yet, but they did give us the information we asked for.
Okay. Chris, do you wish to speak?
Sure, this is Chris Ryan from Meridian Associates. We did the revised plan sets that were just described. So yes, basically we tried to our intention was to address all of the concerns that were previously raised by adding additional stormwater measures in the areas that were highlighted. They basically consist of a couple of just large, like shallow depressions that would be able to ameliorate the stormwater issues in that part of the site. We do understand that additional soil testing is going to be needed. We based our design off of the existing geotech information that we had. So we felt pretty confident in what we were able to put forth. We widened the road as directed. We've increased the amount of infiltration, the stone trench along the road to basically encompass the entirety of it to try to improve the that BMP's level of treatment. And that's basically it in a nutshell. The existing basin, we enlarged it, we made it shallower. Again, understanding that we're going to have to do additional tests out there in that location. And we think we've been able to put forth something that's going to get the job done in terms of what the town and the Stormwater Board requires.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ryan? Any comments from anybody on the committee?
I just think obviously we need some time to look over the plans. I looked over them quickly, but I do have a couple of comments. But I think I need to review the plans in earnest before I put anything in writing or bring it to the committee. So obviously, these talks will continue. But I don't know that the plans are perfect just yet.
I would just add, as the committee is preparing to review the plans, we are going to be delivering the hard copy, as Todd mentioned, no later than Thursday. Our hope is to get it to you tomorrow, but Thursday at the absolute latest. That hard copy, and we'll provide an updated digital copy as well, will include some additional details that the committee previously requested on elevations around the road and some of the specifics there. So no change to the design, but some additional detail that will hopefully help with the review. And then the only change that will be reflected in that final set to be delivered is that we've added the paved apron at the site entrance that was requested. That got missed in the initial drawings, but we've added that back in, or added that in, so that that's addressed as well. So I just wanted to flag those two things that will be coming over as the final plan sets, and the timing for the hard copies that are required.
What he was referring to at the entrance is at William Street there, because it's a gravel road that's going up a great steep pitch and mainly widening it and making it more usable. We were concerned that water flow would be coming out on William Street and muddying up all the catch basins on William Street. So whatever they come up with, which it's obviously, I don't have it big enough to look at, for to see what they're doing to try and stop mud from coming out on William Street.
Is the access road that they're going to widen, is it the road that we took when we went up along the side of?
Yes, it's between the two parking lots.
Yes.
Yes. So they have to widen that, and as a result of that, there's going to be more water coming down towards William Street. So that's why we just need to make sure it's being controlled. That's all.
When do they anticipate construction to start? Chris, any idea when, if everything goes okay, when do you think you're going to start construction?
Ideally, Chris, do you mind if I take this one?
Sure.
Yeah, so ideally we'd like to be starting construction in late June or early July, based on the timing of kind of subsequent approvals that are required here. So we're, eyes wide open about the fact that there are ongoing conversations with the Conservation Committee, with the Fire Department, and that this update to the plans will also require coordination with the Planning Board after we land on a final approved stormwater design. And so allowing time for all of that to get run through and to receive the final building permit we're hoping to be well into construction this summer so that we can make the most of the summer construction season.
Have you considered how to handle traffic? Have you had any conversations with the police department? I mean, that's my concern, is that road that you're going to expand is going to go between, I'll call them, two very busy parking areas and up along the side of those greenhouses. And I would think there's gonna have to be police details when this is going on. I can't imagine those trucks or whatever.
And we may have the fall festival this year too.
I think you need to take a look at safety issues. And what Mr. Aguirre is referring to is if COVID is sufficiently under control, the first Saturday in November has customarily been the Arts and Music Festival that the Lions Club have. Literally thousands and thousands of people come. As a matter of fact, they park at the Mannheim Auto Auction and they run shuttle buses, but the foot traffic is unbelievable. But even without that, probably one of the busiest places in this town, especially during the summer, is Arujos. So I think you're going to have to look into police details when these trucks are moving. And again, even during the week, they don't really have slow days once the growing season starts, and they just opened up. So something you need to do, I would suggest.
Some of that might be on the private property for controlling cross traffic too, not so much out on the street, but it could be both.
Yeah, I think you need to talk to everybody involved about somehow police details or something. And then the other thing too is the water district obviously has to have access because of the water tank if they have to get up there for a certain reason. So public safety is on this particular project is something we haven't had to deal with other solar projects. So
we also have emergency repeaters located on the water tower, the water tank. So we have generators and electronics up there. So yeah, we'll have to really have a discussion about this, which we can go over in our pre-construction meeting. But logistically, we need this to be on your radar.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. You guys are all super important concerns. We've had some conversations with the Arujos about traffic management coming in and out of the site. That was in the context of a different construction season. So I know those conversations are ongoing. So I'm not prepared to respond to that right now, but I definitely think that, or we will definitely be prepared to have that conversation. Part of the pre-construction meeting, and any additional information that you need as part of the building permit application or whatever forum is right to provide that. But yeah, definitely appreciate those concerns, and we'll be sure to address them.
yeah, I would think not only the concern of the town as far as traffic in general, but the safety of the public that goes there. And I would also think if I were a property owner on this project, I would really be concerned about my own liability as it would relate to all the foot traffic. And these are people of all ages. I mean, there's children and everything else. So, and they do conduct classes outside also in the summer. So a lot of things to talk about. Again, that's not really stormwater, but as we talked about when it was going to start, I have visions of a lot of people out there and big trucks and equipment and whatever.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
I'd just like to remind you that any and all plans that are provided, please be sure that the planning board receives a copy, not only just the stormwater committee or conservation. We need to have these strong records also.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Rhines. We wanted to make sure that they were acceptable to the planning or to the stormwater committee so that you didn't have to review them twice, but we'll provide you guys with a copy as well.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else? I see Mr. Daniel. Bill, go ahead. Mr. Frenette.
Bill Frenette, Conservation. The first plan I looked at on this project showed access to the south of the greenhouses and considerably to the south. On a right of way that went from William Street straight into where, who walked up there with me? Did you guys?
Yeah, we did. We were
Well,
all
as you
there.
come along, up alongside the water tank, you have to take a quick left now.
Yeah.
The old plan showed that going straight, oh yeah.
No, it did, you're right, I agree with you.
That was years ago now.
Not doing that, I'm sorry, it's not doing that anymore,
Why?
because it crossed all the wetlands. That's why.
Yeah,
There's wetlands there?
Yeah. Just a little.
No, I'm talking about from the tank to William Street.
No,
no,
we're talking about beyond that.
yeah.
No.
No, he's
I'm-
talking, if you come out from the
It's
side,
fine.
you go where the water tower on the left, and we took the front left to go around the left, he said it took one straight out.
Exactly.
That was the original plan from like 5 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, what I think it was getting at is why can't the project avoid wetlands entirely?
And crossing all pedestrian traffic and everything else, right?
Oh, I don't know, I didn't see that plan.
You think I forget, huh?
Oh, I didn't think you'd forget.
Okay.
No.
Chris, are you familiar with what they're talking about?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
The only thing I can think of, I mean, we were not involved in the initial permitting of this project. The only thing I can think of is that he might be referring to an earlier iteration of the design that subsequently got abandoned and they decided to come in from William Street. It's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, because the area
We
he's,
did the site walk,
yes,
and all you people took the left to go.
I remember you saying that to me. I remember you saying that to me about
And
there was a
looked
different
down there
plan.
And I said, why aren't we coming this way?
Yeah, so that's the current plan with the zigzag.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, hold on.
the thing is, Chris, with what Mr. Fernet is talking about, it would eliminate passing between those two parking lots, and I'll call it the customer area for that business. So that would be the only comment.
No, I understand what the gentleman's talking about. I was just saying that I was not involved in the early permitting phase of this project. So there must have been a reason why they decided to go the route that they did.
Just wanted to let the stormwater committee know that, since the last meeting, they requested a meeting with me, so we did a Zoom. Tim Sullivan and their consultants. And I let them know that, because the plans have changed substantially when it comes to conservation, they do need to refile with us. So I think they understand that now. And in addition, the flags have expired as far as the delineation is concerned. They're only good for 3 years. So
My understanding from the site visit, they were supposed to reflag things. Have they been reflagged?
We did rehang the existing delineation flags in the area where the road passes between the two areas of wetland. Yes.
So because their DEP policy states that if there's substantial changes to a plan, the Conservation Commission has the authority to request a new notice of intent. And because we did permit it a certain way with the old plans, we need the new plans that show exactly what they're doing and exactly what how they're meeting the standards, exactly what the disturbances are. So we're not allowing them to do more or less than they're actually doing.
So since the site visit, you have not been provided a copy of the plans?
I have a copy.
All right. Are they the most recent, up to date?
They're what you guys have, yes. But what I'm saying is because they've changed things.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they have changed things, they're not the most recent.
They've changed with stormwater since they've met with conservation.
Okay. And you're looking for those updated?
We need a new filing for
Okay, Chris, did you hear Lisa?
I could barely hear her.
Me too.
Yeah, in discussions with Tim Sullivan and, your consultant couple weeks back, in a nutshell, the changes are substantial enough. The changes were not permitted in the previous notice of intent application. So in our old orders, we have conditions as far as the crossing over the tension wires crossing over the wetland and cutting in there. Now, I know you have eliminated that part of the project, but because it's a substantial enough change, we want, and we actually requested a few additional things in the meeting. We wanted to file a notice of intent.
Did you hear that, Chris?
Hopefully that works.
I did hear that. I think that might be a decision for Clearway as far as how they want to handle this. Again, we were not involved in the initial permitting of this site. We had no involvement with the delineation of the wetlands or the preparation of the notice of intent. So I'll leave that to Mr. Von Allman to comment on.
Yeah, just to maybe make a quick clarification on roles and responsibilities here. So Chris and his team serve as the civil engineer of record in support of the construction drawings and the construction effort here. The team from TRC is supporting the overall permitting effort, both with the Conservation Commission and Planning Board. And Tim, myself, and Lisa chatted, as she mentioned, and understand the request. Again, we're just trying to sequence things in a way that creates as little extra work for the commission and the parallel commissions as possible here. So understand the request, and we wanted to get some feedback on the stormwater design to make sure that we kind of had our arms fully around what, if any, changes were being requested, so that we had kind of a final plan set to move forward with for that discussion. So if I can maybe just try and summarize how I understand the order of operations here, and to the extent that members on the commission want to provide any feedback, we would certainly be happy to get that. So, we've provided the updated stormwater drawings. Once Todd and the commission have a chance to review those and we set a new meeting date, we'll be able to get either those finalized or whatever comments are required to finalize those drawings. Once we have a final approach on the stormwater design, then we would take that to both the building department and fire department to get confirmation on acceptability of the limited distance of narrowed access road going through the wetlands there, because that's really the biggest point of concern in terms of wetland impacts. And if that's acceptable to the fire department, that would kind of finalize our request or any work that we need to do with the Conservation Commission. And it would finalize the feedback that we need to seek kind of final approvals from the planning board, so that we would then pursue those two updates in parallel before bringing it back for a final building permit. So hopefully that made sense. Hopefully it's not wildly off base in terms of what folks on the phone are expecting. But we just wanted to make sure that we kind of got this piece set before asking people to spend a whole bunch of time reviewing things that haven't been finalized.
I think that makes sense. Basically, I think that makes sense. What was worked out was, if there's additional basins out there, obviously we needed to figure that out before they came back to us for amended conditions. And then I didn't notice the intent and new conditions, so that makes sense. Thank you for explaining it better than me.
Does anyone else wish to speak? I know we've got to set a date to continue this hearing.
Could I just real quickly before you do that, just want to say if Todd or anybody else has questions or needs clarification about the new work that we've done, and they'd love to jump on a call or video call, whatever, I'd be happy to do that, to talk about what changes they might want, or however they want to handle it.
Okay.
I was gonna recommend that prior to our next hearing, because I have some comments, so, yeah, Lisa, Todd, and I will get together and we can have a conference call. We want to talk about
Okay.
That's totally fine.
it.
Is there anything else on this before we continue this hearing?
I guess just to get, to triple check process here. We're happy to send the updated plans directly to the building and fire department, if that's acceptable to folks on the phone. But if the town wanted to handle the routing of that directly, that's also acceptable to us. But we just want to know, if we should be sending it, that we go ahead and do that.
Yeah, either way is fine. If you get them just to the Board of Health, we can disseminate them to everybody that needs them, or you can drop them off wherever they need to go. It doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll just do that and coordinate for you guys for getting those socialized with the building and fire folks.
And also, just to clarify, how many copies do you think you'll need?
Like one full-size set and like 4 11 by 17 sets ought to do it.
Okay,
And
and
just one of anything drainage.
okay, so one full size, one drainage report, and then 4 reduced size sets.
And that's only for the stormwater. I don't know what the Planning Board of Conservation needs on their ends, if you're refiling or filing for amended.
If you're revising the amendment, yes, we want to set up that. We're ready to go on.
Yeah, so if you're going to be looking for the planning board to vote on accepting a plan or something, they're going to need to have copies of it also. And same thing with conservation. If you're doing an amended order or whatever, a new filing, you're going to need to give them sets. So,
Okay,
So that's 3 now.
but for stormwater, I only need the one and the one drainage and like 5 11 by 17. So.
okay. I will get those to you as soon as I can.
Okay.
Okay, Chris, I just want to comment, if you sat in on any of the previous part of this meeting, you heard us talking about other solar farms and other projects. One of the biggest problems we've run into is how it appears that these solar farms change owners or change developers or change contractors early in the game. And the kind of things that hold things up are the fact that there are so many changes and there's not continuity. In other words, when one company drops out, they don't just turn it over to the next one and they continue. I guess we're spoiled because we have 2 projects that came through, got approved by every board, and even made it to a town meeting for pilot agreements. And that was because from beginning to end, even though there were 2 property owners involved and we needed 2 of everything, there was uniformity with everything that took place. In looking at what we've been talking about today, and I'm not singling you out, but one of the biggest problems is continuity, especially when a solar farm has been around for a few years. So I think it's very important going forward that everybody at your company is aware of what's taken place in the past and what may have been sent to various town boards, and everybody here is trying to stay abreast with where we're supposed to be. But these continuous changes seem to further delay projects, I'll put it that way. So I just want to assure you, on the town side, everyone is trying to do what they have to do. And so, again, on your side, whatever you can do to as best coordinate the history with the current events would be really appreciated. As I say, your project is the 3rd one we've talked about today that have a history of major changes and information not being carried forward to whoever is trying to get these things permitted and built now. So just some additional information for you.
No, I completely understand. We've been involved in enough of these projects to understand what you're talking about, and I understand any frustrations that the board may have. I mean, we're just we'll try to do everything that is necessary to make sure that the board's requests for information are satisfied, and to try to make it a less bumpy process if possible. But no, I completely understand your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So let's get a date for the next meeting to continue this hearing. So today is the 6th of April. The 6th of May is actually a Thursday. Is a month enough time to continue this hearing? I know that Mr. Pilling, Mr. Aguirre, Mrs. Caledonia, and probably Mr. Ferry are going to have interim discussions with you. So from the Stormwater Committee perspective, what do you think is a good date to allow time for you to do this, to interact with the developer?
I know when we start getting into May and June, we start getting into our bulky item pickup weeks and vacations and stuff, that everybody's trying to use their vacation by the end of June. So I would probably aim for more towards the end of April than I would the beginning of May.
If we get those plans next week, and by next week, I see no reason that we need more than a week or so to look at them.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, Lisa, would you agree?
So are we looking at the week that begins Sunday, April the 18th? 19th is a holiday. How's the 20th?
No,
Not the 20th. 22nd? That's a Thursday?
22nd's okay with me.
That's correct. Yeah. Just in case you want.
It's a what
No,
day?
wait a minute, excuse me. No, wait a minute, wrong place, wrong place.
We're in April.
Yeah, we went back to April. April 22nd is a Thursday. Does that work, Chris?
That works for us, if it works for the committee.
Looks like it works for us. Mrs. Grassi, we will, we're going to be looking at the regular meeting time. I need a motion to continue this hearing to Thursday, April 22nd at 2 p.m.
Well, before we set 2 p.m., is there any other stuff we're going to be dealing with? Should we move them up to like 1:30 or something like that? Because I know this meeting, we had a bunch of things, but I don't know, having another meeting in
Right.
2 weeks, we may not have a full agenda, that's all.
Well, we don't have any other hearings scheduled, and if by any chance we have to schedule them, we'll put them after them. So you think 1:30 would be better? 1:30, Mr. Ferry? Mrs. Caledonia, 1:30 for the hearing? Well, no, we can go to the next week, if that's going to be a problem for you.
Well, your comments, you'd have your comments in for what you need for conservation anyway, right? For what they need, so.
Okay, so we're looking at Thursday, April 22nd to continue. I'm looking for a motion then for Thursday, April 22nd. Thank you. Is there a second?
State the name for the,
Motion made by Commissioner Ryan to continue the public hearing until April 22nd at 1:30 p.m.
Is there a second?
I will second that. Todd Pilling.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, Mr. Pilling.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye.
Mr. Ferry.
Aye.
Mr. Rhines.
Aye.
Mr. Burnett.
Aye.
Selectman Goulart, aye. Mr. Pires, you recused yourself, so we'll just make a note in the record that you did not participate in this.
Yes.
Okay. So the meeting itself, our next Stormwater Committee meeting will be scheduled for 1 p.m. April 22nd here with a 1:30 continuing the hearing for the solar farm on Arujo property there on Williams Street.
You think you can do cookies on the 22nd?
I think I can find a way, yes.
Chris, or anybody else, do you have anything else? Are you all set?
I think we're all set. I will get the plans requested by the Stormwater Board to you you'll have them on Thursday.
Okay, you're gonna get those to Mr. Pilling, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nothing else from Clearway.
Thomas Myers here. I'll be rejoining the meeting, but I will also make a motion at this time that we take items 6J and K out of order before our members start leaving.
Okay, I have a motion to take agenda items.
Yes, TRC committee, we're done with that.
Yes,
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
we have a motion to take agenda items 6J and K out of order. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the second was Mr. Aguirre. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? I will do again, roll call, Mr. Pilling,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre, Mr. Pyers,
Aye.
Mr. Ferry,
Aye.
Mr. Rhines,
Aye.
Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
and Selectman Goulart, aye. Forest Hills, who would like to speak about Forest Hills?
Oh, boy.
Okay, Bill, go ahead. You're first.
No, I'm gonna listen.
We haven't received anything yet.
I got nothing.
Okay, Mr. Rhines, I know,
We have received some plans from them. We did have a public hearing. We continued the public hearing until next, which would be the 21st, I believe. They're up again, the public hearing. We will continue the public hearing. We have been taking in residents' comments in regards to the project. We have not voted on anything, of course, because it's still the continued public hearing process. I am asking our office manager to get in touch with the lawyers to find out if the planning board not only has to accept written documents from residents and also hear them verbally through Zoom. So to me, it's just it's repetitive. So I'm looking at a situation where we'd like to accept their documents into record, not have to read them individually, and then not have to hear the individual speak on Zoom or either or. So you're gonna have to make a choice because it's redundancy is what it is. And we're trying to eliminate that because we had a situation where if people look at the Zoom meeting that was held, Mrs. Easterday did a fantastic job running the meeting, but we had people in the waiting room. We had people also on Zoom and also on YouTube at the same time. They didn't understand that once you go from watching on YouTube to be accepted into a Zoom meeting, there's a 30-second delay. So we were having a little bit of difficulty taking care of that. So we're looking to.
Can you quantify how many people logged into that meeting?
I would guesstimate about 125.
Yeah, we can't
At
have
least.
that before 100 right now.
Indoor galleries not more than enough. And even still, we don't have the space here in the town offices for that kind of thing.
No,
We have
that's
to use the school. Right now, the schools are closed to anybody for outside gatherings except for town meetings. So we have to get permission from the school.
Unless it was held outside. I think if you keep the people from voicing their opinion at a public hearing, you're in for trouble.
Well, I
think that's the
agree.
whole intent.
I agree.
Is having people's voices heard. So especially something so controversial like that. We now see the signs all over town. So, I mean, you're the chair, I respect your opinion. I just think that the townspeople need to be heard.
We did run into a situation where one resident, had set a time limit. Unfortunately, I set it for a minute, so I think maybe this coming public hearing, I may extend it to 5 minutes per person, but we don't want to be there until midnight, so I'd like to also set a time frame where we can adjourn at a good time also, but also we have to give the chance to the residents to speak. But again, I just want to say that to me, it's this redundancy of having someone come in and give a written statement sent to us through the planning board through email, and they have to hear that because they've already given us a written statement. this into record. So one person was on for over 9 minutes, and she thought I was being rude by trying to intercede on what she was saying, and just say, your time is up. You need to hear other people. And then there was an email sent back and forth, so I'll just leave it at that.
You could set time limits for discussion and move on after that time limit is up. It's a lot easier in person than on these things.
Much easier. And again, I just want to thank, Mrs. Easterday, because, she did control that meeting as best as she could. And unfortunately, it did go over 3.5 hours. And every time I've seen them on cable myself, I've kind of cringed a little bit at it, so.
I would also add that you can have people, like if she gets up and talks for 10 minutes and says everything, I can just get up and say, I agree with everything she said, instead of saying it all over again. And that's a way to shorten
It's not how human nature works. Everybody wants to be heard. That's the problem.
Well, a lot of people don't want to talk on camera either, but to just get up and say, I agree with something.
Especially when the issue is, before, so.
So I have a very direct, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Aguirre.
Question regarding stormwater. If anyone has looked at the plans, I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is going to continue into Taunton. There's going to be lots located in Taunton. No one can tell me how many. I'm sure there's a plan somewhere, but it hasn't been presented to Dayton. So that poses a problem because we have roads now that are going to lead from Dayton into Taunton.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. So from a stormwater perspective, unless the crown of the road is at the property at Dayton and Taunton, who's dealing with the stormwater and who's permitting? I doubt that they're putting the highest elevation of that road at the Taunton Dayton line, and this is gonna go this way, and this is gonna go
Big
this way.
speed bump.
So,
We'll catch basins right at the town.
yeah, but which way do they flow?
Whichever they have to stay in your town. If it's going downhill towards Dayton, they'll put a set on the Taunton line and take that water into.
So I guess my direct question is, should we reach out to Taunton to find out if there's any dialogue with them right now about this?
So didn't they have to notify the Taunton?
I'm glad that the building commissioner brought this up because I've asked our office manager, Mrs. East today, to reach out to Tom Planning Board to see if, these people have presented any, plans to the planning board there, because I've heard it could be possibly 25 lots to 35 lots in Taunton. There has been a decision that was rendered by the judge, and the judge stated in the decision that if that were the case, then who would provide emergency service access to the residents? It's going to be provided by the city of Taunton, it's going to be provided by the town of Dayton. Is the sewer going to be approved to go into Taunton from the subdivision itself? So there's a lot of caveats. There was a decision was written and rendered by the judge that this could be a long process.
Do you need
So-
municipal agreements for street snow plowing and that kind of stuff? There's a lot of-
So the issues you raised are the issues I raised that night when I had an opportunity to speak from a stormwater perspective. The first thing that was truly not stormwater, my question was, you're going to have houses in Taunton? The answer was yes. There was concern about water. Well, we know North Dayton gets its water from Taunton, so this would be obviously Taunton, North Dayton Fire District or Taunton Water. I asked him about whether or not they had looked at the capacity of our sewer lines that go to Taunton right now. And they said there was a study done back in the 90s. And my point was, and since then, we've added a lot more to those sewer lines. And you're going to have to do another study but I also said to them, so since you're going to have homes in Taunton and streets in Taunton coming into Dayton, is the plan to bring water and sewer into the North Dayton, this development without coming in through the North Dayton Fire District, at least coming into town? And I would assume you would somehow connect it up, and the sewer lines going out that way. And that's when the engineer said that, what's his name? Is it Lundquist?
Oh, yeah.
Jason Lundquist. He's the one that said that, no, they were planning to hook into existing infrastructure. And again, I said, but you just said it was studied in the capacity of the sewer line was studied in the 90s. Well, since then, we brought it all the way down to the police station and tied in just about every development except Country Hill Drive. But anyhow, the other concern is there have been people that live on South Walker Street that have contacted me because their land abuts the proposed development area. And the concern was, how are we going to be affected? And I said, you got to talk to Taunton. That's not a Dayton question. We have a diagram that shows where this thing is supposed to go. And yes, it does go behind your property, but that's really not a Dayton question. I think that, I think I will reach out to Jack Ham, who used to be DEP and he retired, but he's now sort of a consultant for the city of Taunton. He's turned up at some of our meetings, Mr. Ferry. And I will find out from him, who's the stormwater person? Because one of my questions was, if the roads are coming in from Taunton, I'm assuming they're hooking up with other roads in Taunton and coming into Dayton. I hope they're not, you know, turnarounds or whatever. But I said, I have real concerns about stormwater going into another community. From a stormwater perspective, how are we supposed to control that?
Yeah.
So anyhow, I will reach out to Jack Ham. And if he can't help us, and Mr. Rhines, you're reaching out to the planning board. So maybe between the two of us, we'll get some answers.
I'm also going to reach out to the North Dayton Fire District because I've heard this new rumor projection that a portion of that land they want to build on is not in the North Dayton Fire District. So we need to find out exactly what the situation is with that, because if it's not in the fire district of North Dayton, who's going to provide them with water? Is it going to be the city of Taunton?
Yeah, I don't know how we can move forward with anything unless we know the answers to these questions. Because if you've got houses in Taunton and the infrastructure is coming from the core development, which is in our town, we're now accepting sewage and everything else from buildings that don't pay taxes in Dayton, which go into the infrastructure. Now, I get the fact that they pay sewer tax and whatnot, but it's still entering our town. So it just seems complicated to me. I mean, I know it's done in other communities. I'm not saying there isn't a way. I'm just saying this is the first one that I'm aware of in Dayton. We need to do it right.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions, and I didn't get answers that I felt had,
Substance.
yeah, that's a good word. Will you say substance?
Yeah, correct, because this is just my own belief. I've seen projects, come into town, and there have been a lot of roads that have been accepted that are not through the subdivision rules and reg standards. And I'm a firm believer of, if we go by the subdivision rules and reg standards, it's going to shrink that job, as you very well know, because they're not including sidewalks or any other plans, and nothing that we're looking for in what's written in that bylaw. So if this gets to be a case where it goes back to court again, so be it, because it's just made to be in the same position again.
Mhm, mhm. But we'll have a lot.
That's just my opinion. Of course.
We'll have a lot more questions, and we'll have a lot more information. There was no stormwater committee when this thing started way back when. And people have said to me as a selectman, what's your position on Forest Hills? And I say, I don't have one. Well, how can you not have one? Because I'm chairman of the stormwater committee and I got to follow the rules that relate to the position I hold, or else somebody's going to say she's in conflict, so get her out of there. I said, no, I don't have an opinion on the project. I know there are rules that have to be followed, and the rules that I have to follow don't come through the Board of Selectmen per se. They aren't selectmen rules, they're stormwater rules. So it's got to go through the process. That's all I can tell you. I will say one other thing. Yes, Mrs. Easterday did a great job. Part of the problem that I witnessed was people who were talking loudly and making comments about what was being said without being recognized, and that constant flurry of chats that were going back and forth, many of the comments which were inappropriate. And so it's like, I'll call it a bushwhackers haven, because people were mumbling things that I heard at home. And I was reading things that I thought, well, Kerry, this is a nightmare. So I agree that if there's any way we can have a public meeting, and it may be difficult to control, but even so, it won't be a bushwhackers paradise, because that was my feeling as this thing progressed. And it was brought to their attention a couple of times, and they were still there were still people doing it. They were being critical of people who had spoken, whether they were other residents or whether they were town officials. So, you know, but yeah, I commend her for what the job she did. But it was a nightmare. So
I'll just say this, is that I do anticipate myself reaching out to, you know, our building commissioner, our streets, our stormwater committee itself, in regards to a lot of help, because this is going to be a great project. And I think that with the people that are in this room, I'm sure that we can come to some type of consensus of getting something done. So that's a possibility.
and I think as long as it, which is never supposed to become a 40B, as long as it doesn't become a 40B, because I always have questions with some, it's never going to be that, right? We will enforce what we have to enforce, and we're not going to be ignored or told, you know, as a courtesy, we'll listen, but you really have no say, because no, that isn't going to happen, as long as it's not a 40B.
Yeah, you know, I don't want to be deliberating like that, Madam Chair, but it's, I'm a resident, like everyone here sitting here, and it's not the planning board's position to worry about what the capacity of the schools are, traffic in that area, especially in regard to the schools, because the school department themselves have been warned for the last 10 years, set a plan, get a school building committee together, study committee, and to look at what your needs are going to be. And they have absolutely done zero. And now it seems to be the pressure is being put on boards and committees in this town to say that now it's up to you to do something. And it's really not. It's the responsibility of our elected officials and the school committee to sit back and figure this out. They were warned when they built trailers over there, we spent $1 million. We were warned to get a building committee together and let's look at the needs. So I think they need to do what we elected them to do.
I know there is a facility study at the school because it was mentioned at a meeting that Mr. Mullen and I were at with the superintendent and the business manager. And they fell a little behind because of COVID, but superintendent said they would be meeting again. But again, they've got to have long-range plans, not this like we ran into with those. Oh, it's like, how much money does Dayton have available? Let's tell them we need those portables or whatever you want to call modulars, all right? That's not long-term planning. That's finding out somebody's got some money, so let's tell them we need it, all right? I realized they had overcrowding. That was predicted from when we gave them 110 to rearrange a few things several years before. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Unfortunately, we all witnessed that dog and pony show at the town meeting that year. It's unfortunate because you had
2 town meetings,
you
Mr.
had
Ryan.
a superintendent of schools who just passed the buck on to a gentleman who had absolutely no idea what was going on. Who was the building manager, I believe it was at the time. It was just, you should never have.
It took 2 town meetings because the first time when we finally said, what is it you want? They didn't know. We had to have a separate second town meeting to get that done. So, Mr. Pius.
Yeah, I request, Madam Chair, Mr. Ryan, if you would accommodate us. I'm not sure about the other members, but I'd like to see a copy of the decision. It may help us in some decision-making process that we have regarding stormwater or anything else.
But the court decision?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's important.
I do have it right on my kitchen table. I was looking at it last night.
Okay.
Mrs. Tracy, she can send it out.
Sure, absolutely. I'll have them on Mrs. Easterday forward a copy.
And the other concern is, quite frankly, did the judge who issued that decision, is he up to speed on stormwater? Because if there's anything in that decision that might be contrary to our bylaw, which is based on EPA regs, we got to bring it to their attention and say, time out. So, you know, lots happened since then. So anyhow, anything else on Forest Hills? I know it. We're going to keep this on the agenda as Hunter's Hill. So we'll move on to Hunter's Hill. Does anyone have anything on this one? Anything recent or whatever? Since the last meeting, he was going to get plans and all this other good stuff.
We've seen nothing at the planning board that Chairman in regards to the build out of the internal sewer system up there. We've seen nothing yet. I don't know if the stormwater I'm sorry, the conservation received it yet or Todd Billing at the health department. So we're just waiting on them to see what they're gonna do up there.
So if I could speak.
Go ahead.
On behalf of the Conservation Commission, we did hear them at our last meeting, which was March 18th. They didn't do what we asked, which was to get the site reflagged, which I had asked them a month before to do. Apparently, they're doing it now that we're in the growing season, which is exactly what we need them to do. Evan admitted that, they may have some areas that are isolated within the area of disturbance, which may change the plans a bit. So the commission hasn't, moved on it. We just simply heard and saw the original plans that were permitted how many years ago? 17 years, 16, 15 years ago. So now we're waiting for the new set and all the revisions. So I can imagine it's going to take some time, and I don't know if we just need him to kind of withdraw the application at this point and refile, or.
Dan, I told him we needed some test pits with the drainage basins going, and he hasn't called to schedule any test pits, so.
We still only submitted the 250.
Yeah, right. So basically, nobody's done nothing since the last time this board met.
Okay. Okay, so we put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Getting back to 6E, update on Audubon bylaw. Did we get anything back other than?
No, I sent it to Karen for her to disseminate.
Okay, right. Mr. Mullen, have you seen that report, that draft report from Audubon?
So I've seen the email, I've seen the report, to be honest with you, Madam Chair, I haven't had time to
Okay.
dive into these.
Okay.
When's the
Alright.
deadline? I'm sorry.
It doesn't, there isn't a deadline per se. We have continued to, this has been around a while. Because we were trying to get feedback from others. It's a review of the bylaw, and obviously when we say to Audubon, here it is, they're gonna act on it, and then we're gonna have people saying, who changed the bylaw? Or when did this happen? So we'll just put this on the agenda for the next meeting also, and we'll let Danica know. I mean, this didn't cost us anything, and they've done a lot of work on it, and it's tough trying to get feedback, but like you say, when you have a chance, I haven't heard from the other selectmen. I don't know if they've read it or not, but certainly they've been around long enough. If they had feedback, we could have gotten it. The status of the subdivision stormwater structure inventory. Anything on this one?
So I was gonna go out and do a subdivision. I have it on my desk, but I wanted to hear back from the committee members first before I went out. Does anyone have any comments on that template I put together? Or does it look okay to everybody? We passed that out the last meeting.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I thought, yeah, we were good to
Yeah, a
go.
couple little things I just haven't been able to do.
All
Okay,
right, so then by the next meeting, I'll actually go out and do a subdivision and report back to the committee
okay.
how it worked
So
out.
you're going to actually put the form in use?
I am.
Okay, so Mrs. Grassley, this will be on the next agenda.
You got that, Bob?
Develop a standard format for the planning/zoning boards to inform the stormwater committee, make them aware prior to roadway acceptances. Has anything been done on this, or has this been on a planning board agenda, Mr. Rhines?
We haven't had an opportunity to look at it.
Okay.
April 21st meeting.
Okay,
We have a discussion about it.
okay. So, okay, so that's that one. So that'll be on the next month too. 6H, discuss fortification of stormwater infrastructure. Do we have anything on that? Next meeting, Mrs. Grassley. Stormwater messages, septic systems, dog owners. What I'm going to do on this is, We talked about developing something new that could be handed out, but we still have a supply of the brochures we had printed at BP with our original stormwater education program. I'm going to give a supply of those brochures to the new town clerk and ask him to please give one out to everybody that licenses a dog or whatever they do, because there is a section in there about picking up animal waste and things like that. And I can give some to Nancy too, so that if they're building, because there is also something about, you know, homeowners' responsibilities. And in the meantime, we'll work on developing a new one. I know we're supposed to have something because of the notice of intent for the year we're in, but I also think we've got a little leeway because of COVID. But I think this will be a future agenda item too, Mrs. Grassi, but I think for the immediate future, we can at least give out what we've got.
I already included a brochure.
Oh, all right, so you don't need those, all right, so I will just see the new town clerk, Mark, and ask him to give them out. Mr. Pius.
Are you looking for brochures or information to put on the town website or potential signs about dog waste?
We didn't do signs, but we did talk about, and I've got to look at the NOI because I think we said we were going to put something on the town's website. Mrs. Grassi, do we have anything on the stormwater website relative to pet waste and,
I don't think so.
okay,
I'd like to take this on because I don't have enough to do.
okay. Well, the other thing too is if you go to the EPA website, you can find some that we can fine tune, and also that that Central Mass or that statewide coalition on stormwater. I think they had something that we could fine tune to Dayton. But yes, if you're willing to do that, so so we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and Mr. Pius will give us a brief report on how he's doing.
Madam Chair, I do know that,
Yes.
in regards to, catch basin construction and things like that, other communities I've seen that, they'll literally, you know, in paint, say no dumping in front of the basin, and they'll just say no dumping. That way people know that.
Well, we've got the new culvert covers or grate covers, or what do you call those things, Mr. Perry? Have you put out any of those, by the way?
It's embossed in the, maybe you can discuss requiring it at the planning board level on all new subdivisions. That might be something to bring up to your board.
And Mr. Rhines, I can give you a sample, not the exact one, but a sample of what we looked at when we decided we were going to move ahead with this, so that you can see the kind of message that's on there. I've seen them too. Some places say something like all water goes to the sea or something like that, indicating everything in between can get polluted if you put this stuff in there. So I think we got through all of 6. Kind of looks like that.
You should say pet waste and not dog.
Right.
Pet waste.
Proper terminology.
Is there any correspondence?
We've had human waste in them too.
Sure do have.
I've waited a half an hour.
Do you have that correspondence we talked about?
Thank you. I'm gonna have to bug out the.
Okay, I know people have got to leave because they've got meetings or calls or whatever, so we are going to wrap this up very shortly. Oh, that's what he's looking for. So,
Before we do adjourn, Madam Chair, I just have a question. So did you ever find out what the original source was of the water on 170 B Street? What was the cause?
it's not, we know it's not the,
Rainwater. Mother Nature, strictly Mother Nature.
Mother Nature, and the water used to run to the river, but it's been bulkheaded off. And climate change, and there's a few different factors, yes.
I think the land down by the waterfront is sinking because I look at my mother-in-law's property and I've been married for quite 41 years. And it used to be higher down there, now it's something quite a bit, so I don't know.
It's not the land that's sinking, it's the river that's rising.
Global warming.
Okay, so this came in under correspondence. We're not really going to discuss it. This is going to be on a future agenda item because some people have to do some checking for us. This was a email that I sent to Roz and Lisa, asking Roz to add this to the agenda. Then we decided not to do it because the agenda had already been posted. Lisa found that, well, actually, when we were out at Reed Brothers doing our site visit, Mr. Digit mentioned the fact that there is work taking place along the Segregansett River in Dayton, near the wellheads for the Dayton Water District, and that there had been disturbance along the riverbank of at least 1,000 feet. So Lisa checked into it, and so this is something we will be discussing at a future meeting. Once we know what are they doing, who did they, or should they have, or they haven't notified anybody. From a stormwater standpoint, my question is, well, they're disturbing 1,000 feet. I want to know what their total disturbance area is, because is it the 35,000? Does stormwater need to get involved? Because of its proximity to wetlands and protected water sources, conservation should be involved. But it is in effect, it abuts the property that where the Dayton wells are, my understanding. Right. So, and I asked Mr. Ferry if he had any information on it. And so a few of us are going to have to do some looking into this. It'll be on a future agenda. We'll try to find out as much as we can about the project and how it affects the town of Dayton, if it does, and certainly the Stormwater Committee. Obviously the wellheads, that's the Dayton Water District, but since that would also affect the town of Dayton because the district supplies the water, we will be looking into this. But that's what has come up through that. So there will be something on that for the agenda under new business next time, Ross. Okay. And then you can hold on to that, so we'll have it. Is there any public input? Hearing none. We have two sets of minutes to approve, February 10th and March 16th. Is there a motion to approve those two sets of minutes? We have Mr. Rhines made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Ferry. Which Mr. Ferry spoke up first.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, Mr. Pilling.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye.
Mr. Pius.
Aye.
Mr. Ferry. Excuse me. No, a nod doesn't count, Mr. Ferry. Mr. Rhines.
Aye.
Aye.
Nancy Goulet says aye.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Pius made the motion, Mr. Pilling seconded it. All those in favor, Mr. Pilling,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre,
Aye.
Mr. Pius,
Aye.
Mr. Ferry, Mr. Rhines,
Aye.
Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
and Mrs. Goulet, aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.